Ever wondered what Nvidia's hottest running GPU in terms of temperature was? Probably not, but you're looking at it right here, and that's what we're going to cover in today's video. The flagship of Nvidia of 2010, the GTX 580. How does this beast of a GPU hold up in 2023? We're going to be testing it through its paces and see how it holds up. Now, arguably, maybe not as hot as something like the GTX 480, but still it's a part of the same architecture of GPUs, so the 580 was still an immensely just hot running graphics card. In our previous video, we tried testing out the 5970 in 2023, and it held up pretty damn well. So we're taking it forward just by 1 year, from 2009 up to 2010, to see how Nvidia's answer to the 5970 holds up. Well, I guess the answer was kind of the 590, but still, whatever. I don't have a 590 right now, so maybe in the future. Anyways, and now on to the specifications of this graphical oven. They include 512 shader cores, 64 TMUs, 84 ROPs, and 1.5 gigabytes of VRAM. Not very ideal, but still, I guess it's better than 1 gigabyte, 512 megabytes more. All this is running memory-wise on GDDR5 memory, which is not bad. Some GPUs still use that today. And it's all on a fairly large 384-bit bus. Not bad at all. As for DirectX support, we technically have DirectX 12, but the feature level is only 11, so you're not going to be able to run the latest games, sadly. And even if you could, you also have the problem with the last drivers coming out in 2018, so this isn't a GPU you're not going to be running like Cyberpunk or anything, so it will be able to get by though. And now onto the games, which is probably what you've been waiting for. How does this beast hold up? Let's go. Starting off strong for our test of games for this card was GTA 5 Online. Now GTA 5 Online ran at a beautiful 114 FPS average with the settings set to 1080p, lower settings but with high reflections. Now as always, your FPS will dip a little bit during large stuff like explosions, but as you can see, when I tried to block off the road and cause a large amount of chaos, FPS held pretty damn well, and the only problem really was the temperature. Even if you repaste these old cards, it's still horrible temperature, so it also just comes down to like the OEM cooler design you have of this GPU. The reference design was horrible, this one is also pretty bad, but I don't know, it varies. Overall though, GTA 5 is going to be a beautiful experience probably for most people, and even if you want to crank the settings up to high, you could probably still get 50 to 60 FPS. Beautiful stuff. Valve's newest game up next, Counter-Strike 2, ran at an absolute magnificent FPS of around 170. Now this was at the lower settings, with FSR set to performance, and although it was a little bit pixelated, you still had a beautiful FPS and you could have room to crank up the settings further. Although on a game like Counter-Strike, obviously you know you want to have higher refresh rates. It just weirdly, even super high-end systems, people like to keep their settings low anyways, so you'll get by perfectly fine on this card. Temperatures weren't as bad as GTA, and performance was great. I had to have a great time on this game playing, and other maps like Ancient and everything also ran okay, although the FPS was decently lower because the office level is the most simple level. On other maps like Ancient and everything, you're going to see FPS around maybe 90s, 80s or so. But still, overall, any map you want to play, you should have a decent amount of good FPS. Overall, CS2 was a great experience. Not bad. Now, a much older but much more demanding game was up next, and that was Battlefield 1. Now, Battlefield 1 still ran rather respectively, around the 40s or so in terms of average FPS, and this was at lower settings with a mix of slightly medium settings, all while at 1080p. Overall, it was playable, although still pixelated. And even newer games like Battlefield 5 and everything, I've seen YouTube videos of this card being able to run it still okay. Slightly lower than what you're seeing now, but the card still can pull it off. Although you can't run the latest 2042 because that requires DirectX 12 and you know the whole feature level thing I mentioned earlier, with it being only 11. But still, anything from like literally the first Battlefield all the way up to Battlefield 5, you're gonna have a great time. I decided just to do BF1 though for this test, because it's one of them that I owned. Overall, brilliant stuff, and the FPS is only really going to dip when massive explosions are going on. But it was overall a playable experience, and you're going to have an okay time. Not bad. Now Destiny 2 was an interesting one because I originally for the 5970 video had it set to 720p, and now with the 580, each time I tried to bring it back up to 1080p, it would just continuously crash no matter what and revert itself back to 720p. So we're going to be running with 720p for this test at lower settings. With those settings, we see an average of around the 40s or so, sometimes hitting into the 50s even. It was a pretty playable experience, to be honest, although there was some stutters here and there that were pretty bad. Overall though, I had a pretty good time playing. My team was bad, but I still had a fun time. And you're going to have an okay time playing on this card. It's just smart to keep it at 720p anyways, because this game is demanding. Even on the 5970, it tore it down into the 20s. So it's a nice boost to see it running in the 40s or so on the 580. Overall, Destiny 2 is a decently playable experience, although quite demanding. Also, I'm sorry the FPS overlay didn't work. You only have the top right FPS overlay to go off of. Not sure why it didn't work on this one. Overall, not bad. Fortnite was up next, and compared to the 5970 I tested in my previous video, this card fared quite a bit better compared to that card, mainly because we got to run at higher textures and the distance scaling was set way out this time. Meaning, I could actually see what people were doing in the background and shoot them easier, and they weren't just a pixelated blob like the 5970. And although both cards failed well, the 580 is just was way better. So meaning, if you have one of these old cards laying around, maybe you have a kid or someone, put this card in their computer or something. They'll be able to play the game perfectly fine, and you'll get to put that old card to use. Overall, the 580 ran this game brilliantly, which isn't too surprising because it's not a really demanding game at all, but still. It's good to put these old cards to use, right? Overall, Fortnite was quite playable at these settings, although a tiny bit pixelated. Next was Ark Survival Evolved, a game that ran actually horribly on the 5970, so jumping forward just 1 year in terms of GPU technology, gave us a giant boost. The 580 averaged around 50 FPS at the lowest settings at 1080p, although it does weirdly look like 720p because of the size of the GUIs, but whatever, I digress. Now this game did run the hottest, so I had to turn it off quite quickly, as you can see by the top left. The GPU temperatures were getting quite toasty, but hey, it was perfectly playable 100%, and assuming you have a decent cooler, you rev up the fans more, you'll have a fine time. The problems with these older GPUs is they never rev the fans up high enough. Get something like Afterburner, rev it up, it'll be fine. Although, maybe this 580 has a problem, considering the fans were revved up. Either way, not bad. Testing Sea of Thieves up next, just out of curiosity, because this was another one on the 5970 that it ran so badly on the 5970 that I didn't even add it in the previous video. I don't know if it was just an architectural problem, because as you can see here on the 580, it runs really, really good. The 5970 was pulling maybe 20s or so, and we're up to the 80s now in terms of FPS, so I have no idea what the heck happened. But yeah, on the 580, you can get away with fine FPS, although it's still in the cursed settings, as it likes to call it, which is basically just low settings. But still, not bad, and I'm still mesmerized by the beautiful water in Sea of Thieves. Such a beautiful game, not gonna lie. Either way, beautiful stuff. 5970, bad on this game. 5080 good. We're quickly testing ROBLOX up next. Once again, ROBLOX is actually a platform, not a game itself, so it's kind of hard to pinpoint the true FPS of ROBLOX. It's kind of like asking what's the average FPS of Steam. I just can't do that. But most Roblox games will run perfectly fine on this card, although Roblox is a quite unoptimized engine. The card should be able to brute force through most of its way. So once again, kind of like Fortnite, if you have a kid that plays Roblox, put his GPU in their computer, and they'll be able to play perfectly fine. Temperatures do stay pretty low as well on Roblox, and most of the time, because it's still a simple game, although it can still be laggy because it's unoptimized, but not bad. In conclusion, is this a graphics card you should go out and buy if you're on a tight budget? Probably not. I once again, like the previous video mentioned, if you're on a budget, you should probably go for something like the 1650. But for a card from 2010, it held its own immensely well, and it still did quite a bit better than the 5970. Even though in theory the 5970 with its dual GPUs should be able to outperform the 580. Dual GPU cards were just really iffy back in the day. Still are. That's why they're gone. So if you're on a super tight budget, probably not the best idea, but if you have someone that doesn't play the latest games, maybe a kid or someone, throw this into their computer. Or another reason you should buy this card, if you're doing like an old retro period correct gaming computer, it would fit tremendously well for the 2010 vibe. It can still play games from that time all the way up to around well, sometimes even most modern games, but it is quite hit or miss. With that DX11 support with the feature level, you're not going to be running Cyberpunk. I even tried launching something like Atomic Heart, which I thought would run because there is a DirectX 11 mode, but it didn't work. But still, a great showcasing from this card, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this video of this great old GPU beast. Stick around for the next card, we have some awesome stuff coming, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Peace.